why is that such an amazing business? It's an amazing business because you did all the little things really well. It was our culture, it was our mindset to go in and improve each week. And it's like a human right to put people in their right positions. If someone's not the right person for that job, we're actually doing the right thing by letting them go and do the right thing.
Life's too bloody short, right? It's like, actually, if you're not doing what you love with people you love, it's time to start asking some difficult questions. Thanks for joining us on the Better Business, Better Life podcast. I'm your host, Debra Chantry-Taylor, and I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs lead their ideal lives by creating better businesses, because life is too bloody short. I'm a certified EOS implementer, an FBA-accredited family business advisor, and a business owner myself with several business interests. I work with established business owners and their leadership teams to help them live their ideal entrepreneurial life using EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Today's guest is a fellow EOS implementer. He was brought up in an entrepreneurial business and he's been running businesses for most of his life. He started a business called Machines for You in his bedroom with a mate. It became Australia's largest machinery marketplace, and they sold it successfully 18 years later. He has run the Rotorua Marathon, although he almost didn't make it because he approached it in a typical visionary style. Today he's going to share his journey, his pathway to being a better leader, and how you can use the EOS tools to create a better business and a better life. Steve Krebs is a professional EOS implementer and the founder of Boss Coaching. Welcome to the show, Steve. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Deborah. Appreciate having me on. Yeah, I'm excited to have a bit of a chat and see what comes out.
Same here. I want to have you share your story with the listeners on the podcast. So you have been an EOS implementer for a few months now, but before that, you actually had a business that you built from your bedroom, I understand, and then you sold it 18 years later to a venture capitalist firm. Tell us a bit about your journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey, really. I mean, when I go right back to day one, I was brought up in an entrepreneurial household. Mum and dad, I'm from Rotorua, New Zealand. So mum and dad had two clothes shops and a shoe shop. So there was plenty going on. Dad was always educating me right back to the days of 3, 4, 5 years old, taking me into the shops and, sometimes on the weekends he'd take me in and me and my brothers and sisters. So you had it around you. And then, my parents split up and went their own ways. So I sort of went from heaps and heaps of money and cars and nice big house to, oh my God, living with mum. But we got by, but we didn't have heaps and heaps of money. So I guess from an early age, I sort of learned to, if I wanted something, I had to go out and get it and create that, and me and my brothers, if we wanted a motorbike, we had to go and get a job and figure it out and pay for it. So I think you learn to hustle from an early age, and that taught sort of the basis of entrepreneurship, really, because we went into so many different little businesses and bits and bobs. And then, I've worked for other people. So then I was back in Auckland actually selling capital equipment machinery. And then, yeah, right back to WR Jack's days so I'd go out and see customers and sell them machines to make their lives easier and more efficiency within their businesses. And I really loved that. It was such a cool learning of a job because you got to see so many different businesses and you got to genuinely help them through the process of efficiency and machinery. So did that and then moved over to Melbourne. And then that's where, along with another Kiwi guy, we started Machines for You from the end of a bedroom. So a different world, really, starting a business.
Yeah. So what took you to Melbourne?
It was a girl originally.
Always is, right?
Yeah. So, thought she's the one. I was just move over for a year and give it a try. And, 24 years later, I'm married, 2 kids and a house and, living here. I wasn't actually coming to Australia for that long, but it's an amazing place and a lot of opportunity over here. I still go back to New Zealand loads and loads, but I love it over here. It's a good lifestyle.
I'm very fortunate. I kind of travel between Melbourne and Auckland, so I have the best of both worlds.
Well, there you go. Well, I was in Melbourne originally for 6 years and that's where my wife's from. and then we've moved up to the Gold Coast 8 years ago, and we just absolutely love it up here. It's ridiculous.
Beautiful. Okay, so tell us a bit about this business then. So Machines for You, it was started in the bedroom in Melbourne. What motivated you to even start that type of business?
It was genuinely solving a need because back in those days, 18, 19 years ago now, we we had to help people sell their second-hand machine quite often before they'd buy a new machine. So back in those days, it was trading post, the big thick trading post in the petrol station. We used to help people list their machinery in there. And then, we could see that it was going to go online because car sales was about then, and Trading Post was trying to take their content online, but not doing it very well. So then we were like, hang on, this is what's coming, a machinery marketplace. But when we talked to people at first, they were sort of like, "Oh my god, no one's going to buy a tractor on a website." You go to field days, trade shows, you sell it in the trading post. But then as time went on, we were absolutely bang on, and we were right. We had a model effectively where we could take people's machines, put them on the marketplace, and then run cheap AdWords back in the days. Back in the days when AdWords were 2 cents and 5 cents, and I wouldn't bid on an AdWord when it got to 20 cents. Can you believe it? And used excavators, and now they're what, $14, $16.
Easily, yeah. Okay. And so building a business from the bedroom floor or bedroom end of the bedroom obviously took some effort, and you had a partner in that too, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, we were two mates effectively, and that first 2 years of business, you got to play all out. You got to do something special. I can see why so many businesses go bust in that first 2 years. Something ridiculous like the first 5 years, 50% of businesses have gone out of business, and I can see why, because you got to, I was a good salesperson, be able to communicate. Luke was good with the internet and sort of getting things to work, but you had to evolve quite quickly. We knew we didn't know it all. So there's so many different hats we had to wear. I was marketing, sales, build a team, get a programmer, then get salespeople, then get an office, bookkeeper, accounting. There's so many different things you got to learn and have your head around, but you've got to have the model working first. And I think that's what we did, because it was really built off a need, a problem, and a solution, and we were able to get our customers on and keep them happy, and grow the business that way.
Challenges? What were the biggest challenges you faced?
Oh my God,
Because I'm assuming there was more than two of you by the time that's 18 years later, right? How many staff did you have when you sold?
When we sold in the Gold Coast, we would have had, I think it was 22 at the time, and another 14 in the Philippines, because we had our programmers and content people over in the Philippines. So we learned loads, but loads of challenges. There was always challenges. Like, we could write a book on this, of, right back to the start of, two mates coming together. How do you work that out in a partnership and stay on the same page? Right throughout the journey. It's employing staff and keeping them happy and doing all the rest of it. There's challenges within there. I mean, when we were only 3 or 4 years in, I had a car accident that took me out for 5 or 6 months. So, there's a lot of things that you're challenged with, but I guess it's just how you handle those challenges, whether you're still going to push on and evolve and then get to the point of actually selling it one day.
And you would have been really early on in the times of actually using Filipino staff for development and whatnot too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, originally we started in India, but of course, with the time difference, our head programmer here, we were very lucky. We got a guy that was just a superstar. He right back from the day one, so we actually brought him in, part of the business, because he was very good at managing people, zooming people, getting the clarity. Because it's easy for people in the Philippines to say yes, 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 and they don't actually know what they haven't fully understood it. So we were good at driving and getting them to do the right things that we needed out of the business. So that's a skill that you really, you can't just abdicate it. You can't employ these people and just let them run on their own. You really got to have a strategy behind that, and and work with them every few hours, effectively. Yeah.
Fair enough. So when I talk to entrepreneurs, I always say that there's three things that every entrepreneur, I believe, should have. One is a coach, one's an operating system, one's a peer group. And you actually had all three of those in your business, right? So you became part of Entrepreneurs Organization. You used an operating system in your business. I'm assuming you had a coach too. Tell us a bit about those three components and what they did for you.
Yeah, I've had lots of different coaches across the journey of 18 years. Just like in sport, I mean, how many sports teams do you know who don't have a coach? There's always so many different blind spots that you're growing across the journey, that you just need someone to be able to bounce those ideas off and to help you. Probably the biggest thing about 6 years ago, the business had plateaued. This thing they call it a ceiling in a business. It was genuine. We'd plateaued, and it was frustrating. We're trying things, you're chasing rainbows, you're trying to find these big silver bullets, and you're redesigning commission systems for the eighth time, or you just keep trying all these things, and it gets extremely frustrating. And it was extremely frustrating. And then we went and put in a running system into the business, got another coach, worked on it, and really there was a step before it. It's the good old look in the mirror as a leader and go, what the hell's going on here? How come we get staff and lose staff, and how come we keep turning over the staff? And I had to really take a serious look at what was my leadership level like. So I actually realized and had one of those big moments, where you go, holy shit, it's me. So then went down the road and went on this pursuit of leadership, and it took me into some really interesting areas. Got on this group of men's business people and rising kings, and it was about health and wellness and how you actually showing up to the workplace. So I went on this 12-week thing, and then they took us down to Sydney and put us pretty much through an SAS Code Black weekend where they buckled and bent us. And then you come out the other side and you were forever changed of standards and understanding that, there's all these comforts in business and in life. And if you just keep sort of mundane and sort of staying in those, well, then you don't get the performance. So then when I took the standards and took it back to my business, well, then it really changed. That's where, we reset goals of the plateau. We pushed through it. So we used to have a 400 to 430 machinery dealers advertising on the site, and we just couldn't break that for about 5 years. And then by me changing as a leader, getting better at the way I led people and doing what I say and working on the culture and having the right people in the team, we then set a goal for 500 machinery dealers. And we did that for a 12-month period. Well, we smashed that 2 months early, a month and a half early. And it was through getting a really good coach, having a good operating system to follow, and get the vision out, share the vision with people, because quite often it was in my head as an entrepreneur, getting it out, rolling it out, getting the right people, right seats, all that stuff we talk about. Well, we actually went and did it, and we created an amazing business, that was extremely efficient by the time we sold it.
That's fantastic. It's amazing how those moments can really change you, isn't it? I remember I actually did not an SAS course per se, but something similar. We went and stayed out in a old dilapidated mental hospital, and they had us running around the graveyard in the middle of the night and then abseiling down a building the next day. And yeah, it just brought home how lucky we were and how comfortable life was, that, we weren't challenging things anymore. So yeah, it's great to hear that you've been able to do something similar.
Yeah, it actually showed you that you're capable of way more, and so are your people. So is the business. So when we got this goal of 500, we ended up, going for big dinner and lunch and celebration and everything with the full team. We actually ended up smashing the roof of our office. So genuinely, we'd moved, hitting the ceiling. We'd smashed all the things, extremely drunk at the end of the night, and led by me. But we were so excited that we were punching through and we could take on anything. And if anything was possible, it sort of woke up on the Saturday to my programmer going, "You've smashed up the office." But it was actually so genuinely true. That's what it had taken for us to go to the next level. I mean, we doubled in revenue, and that 12-month period, which is
And you
great.
must have been questioning whether or not there actually were any more to get to, because if you've hit a plateau for such a long period of time, you'd be kind of going, well, is this it? There's nothing more.
Well, you start changing your plan. You start, you're chasing rainbows, I call it. You're after these pot of golds within the business that then people are changing too quickly. You're chasing this bit and you're chasing that. And that's what we realized is where you get really good in business, it's all the little one percenter improvements. It's all the small things you do on a daily basis. Then everyone goes, oh, why is that such an amazing business? It's an amazing business because you did all the little things really well. And when we had that, doing it over 40 people, well, they were doing it really well too. It was our culture, it was our mindset to go in and improve each week. Yeah, and it really works.
And you said it was about being able to share your vision as well, which often as a visionary, we've got this amazing vision in our head, but we just haven't really articulated it in a way that people understand.
Yeah, it's like why aren't they following me? Why are they not follow? They're like we visionary, so I can chop and change. Come out with these great ideas. Or go away for the weekend, or go to a conference. I'd come back with these great ideas and just moving and chopping and changing before people actually get to settle in and do things. So once we clearly got that out and I could stand up in front of the group and say it was quite a daunting thing. I remember when I had to go and do this presentation to the team of, oh, here's our vision, because it was the first time we're telling everyone the vision in about 10 years. We'd tried of other versions in the past. We would go away for the weekend and we'd come back with this great idea. Usually it was, we're going to go from $4 million to $20 million or something absolutely ridiculous that we had no plan for. And then you would do that plan and put it back in the drawer because it just wasn't real, and it wasn't, off 1% in growth. It was off the big rainbows, the silver bullets, I call them. So when we actually did that and you could see the incremental improvement over the months, and people, would have the quarterly catch up with the team and let them know that we're on track and we could celebrate that and keep doing more of what we're doing. People love that. People actually like fine tuning something and being part of it. We really gave everyone a real belonging and an environment where it was, pretty exciting to talk about problems and fix them and fine tune them. And it was okay. People weren't going to get crucified, So it was a good working environment where people could grow off it.
It's interesting when I teach scorecards to the teams that I work with, I often have to be very, very clear to the visionaries that they might have this massive big goal that they're trying to achieve. But if they put that on the scorecard and it's unachievable and it's red week in, week out, it's not going to do anything for the team in terms of motivating them. So sometimes we have to sort of take a step back and put a lower number in and hit it a couple of times and get some greens, then raise it, and then get a couple of greens and raise it. Because as visionaries, we kind of go, oh, it's okay, we'll get there eventually. But for the people on the ground, they just see you chasing the rainbows, the unicorns, the pots of gold, and they get to the point where they go, "This can't be done." We're kidding ourselves. So having some reality and some serious predictions that they can actually achieve gives them that momentum, I find.
Oh, absolutely. And they did the study on the mice and the cheese, didn't they? If you put the cheese too far away, the mice can't go towards it. So I got big at setting up the staff for success. Set up, and it sounds so ridiculous. Oh, we all do that. Well, no, we weren't. We had some targets that were too difficult. The process someone was going through. So when you get people to reach a goal, and then you're able to work with them and go a bit further and reach, a bit further. Well, everyone can reach a bit further, but you don't want to cook them in the meantime where it's too far out. The cheese is too far away, and so it was big on. We were huge on everyone should come into the business for the day and leave knowing they were successful or not. Did we set them up for the success just in a day, in a week, in a month, in a quarter then? Because if we're not, well, then we're not, you're going to end up on two different pages, and that's when people leave, So, um, people, yeah, 82% of issues they say come from the people component. And man, I'm like, it's probably higher, 82%. Yes, it's real. Because when we go people, is it just our staff? No, we go back to the leader, we go to the staff, we go to our customers, we go to our suppliers. I mean, there's some customers we should fire. There's some suppliers we shouldn't be working with. They're not the right people, right culture, right fit. So we took it right to that level. And then when we did it with people we want to work with, and you know, the right customers, and had communication and clarity with them, and a good product that was solving their problems, that's where we it was pretty cool in the end.
That's why I love the people analyzer. I find that tool is just, it's so simple and yet it's so beautiful because yes, it tells you, you think you got a people issue, you put up the people analyzer, you kind of score them on the values and whether they GW see it. And then you actually have to ask the really honest question, well, actually, is it them or is it me? As the leader, have I given them the right tools? Have I given them the right boundaries? Have I been really clear about what I expect in terms of behavior and what I don't expect? Have I actually put them in a role that they can do, that they genuinely want to do and have the capacity to do? It's a great tool for having those questions answered.
Well, Dan says that, isn't it? It's like a human right to put people in their right positions. We're doing the right thing by all other humans. And if someone's not the right person for their job, we're actually doing the right thing by letting them go and do the right thing. You know, if it's not right for the business, it's not normally right for the person, is it? And then it's not right for the company, it's not right for the customers. You might as well get them going and doing something good. And when we got good at that, I could sit in the uncomfortable conversation to let someone go, and it was actually a good outcome. It was a good outcome for everyone. I've had people come back to me 6 months, 12 months later and go, man, that was the right, it was hard at the time, but it was actually the right thing for them. And they ended up happier. And we got the right person, we ended up happier. So it's like, yeah, it's our job as leaders. That's that pursuit of leadership. Looking in the mirror and going, hang on a sec, right environment, right people. That'll out trump anything. I did do the thing where I just threw people at problems, and they're expensive. And when people don't have clarity, the reverse of that is that it does cause a lot of issues and a lot of heartache and a lot of pain and a lot of sleepless nights. I guess if you are throwing the wrong people at the problem,
I do wonder, and we see it quite a lot with the clients that we work with, where they're not having the difficult conversations. So you're saying that it's probably around their own development and being a better leader will actually help them to have those conversations.
Yeah, I'm going through it at the moment. The customer, the clients I'm working with, and I got to sit, and then we show up again and go, "Hang on, have you done it?" No, no, no. It's just a thing that they've got to get over and evolve, and then they'll be able to do the right thing by their people.
And I think once you've done it once, you kind of do, you start to see that actually it's good for everybody all around, and therefore it's necessary.
Well, I think we get caught as leaders that we've done it and it was really difficult, and we might have cocked it up. So we don't want to go back there. But then you're just left with a whole heap of people in your business that shouldn't be there. So you get hurt from it those early times because you are inexperienced to it. So that's why, having someone in your corner to help you sort of work through those situations, give you some communication tools and to be comfortable with it, and then it can help them through the process, and then they get to see, oh, wrong person in there, right person in there. That's a different business.
So tell me a bit about Entrepreneurs Organisation, because I mean, I spent about 3.5 years in a forum. It was one of the, it was great for me, and I will go back to it eventually when I get a bit more time. But you've been doing it for almost 6 years now. What's the benefit for you of being part of that peer group?
Well, it's about talking with people who are going through similar challenges to you, or people who you like hanging out with. Like, business is my modern day sport. Like when I was younger I played sport, now I play business. I love it. That's my passion. So I was just in Queenstown with Queensland chapter advance, and for 5 days with other 80 business owners. I mean, that's just me in happy land. That's just like the conversations, the depth we go to, and the people you're hanging out with. Like meets like. Should we share it with the dog or the wife or the kids, or should we talk to people who are actually going through similar situations? I mean, there's some people in there $100 million businesses, and they're sharing ideas and open challenges that they've got, and it can be similar to someone going through the $2 million mark, $5 million mark. So it's just that learning environment for me. They're getting some great keynote speakers and stuff. I'm all about learn or die, pretty much. That is genuinely me. If I'm learning, I'm happy, I'm growing. If I'm not, yeah, I get distracted and I get, need to go and do something. So that's why I love the EO part of it. Now I'm actually going on to the board, and I've been on the board for the last 12 months, and I'm full time on the board. So just doing those other roles. I'm also coaching the accelerator group, which is smaller businesses trying to go through that, get to $2 million. So I love that. It's just working with them. They're amazing.
I think it was the sort of the sharing of experiences as well. It's like it's not theoretical. It's not reading some book. It's actually them people genuinely sharing what's going on for them and getting to that. They call it the 5% that you never get to talk about with anybody else, which is just phenomenal, powerful.
Yeah, but that's the crazy thing. You go straight to that when you talk to people because it's like this umbrella where you can just talk about the real issues. Those ones you used to bottle up, and those ones make you crook. They make you stressed. If you can share those earlier, it comes out, and then you can feel better and be better as a person. That's why I love the name of your podcast, by the way.
Oh, good.
Best,
Thank you.
best life. I'm under no illusion that we get to live one life, so we just got to live our best life, best business, best life. Yeah,
I always say life's too bloody short, right? It's like, actually, if you're not doing what you love with people you love, it's time to start asking some difficult questions.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, starts with us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's something really interesting that came out from last week. It was Sir Michael Hill Jeweler. He does 30-year thinking, and it just blew my mind because I was always 10-year thinking or 5-year, 3-year, 1 year. We all live in this sort of 1 year, 12 months. Go and do the Happy New Year, 12 months. Whereas he's 30-year thinking. I mean, you go and think about in 30 years' time where and what you've done and who you're with and who's your team and where you're around and how's your health looking, all that. It should have a decent look in the mirror, that's for sure.
I mean, I think 10 years is still good, but you're right. Going even further makes you really start to think because we do this exercise with our clients, right? We sort of say, look at 10 years and take your age where you are now, add 10 years to it. And for most of us, particularly me who turned 54 this year, I kind of go, 64. Oh my goodness, that's ancient. It's like the retirement age, which I don't think I'll be retired, but imagine adding 30 years to it. That's just an entirely different ballgame.
Yeah, well, he's 86 and he was adding on 15 years. He just has this longevity mindset and he's still quite fresh as a daisy. He was fun. He was still had heaps of go about him, 86. He wasn't all starting to think about hopping in the box. He still had this great positive attitude, and had all these things on the go, which I really liked. It's a good way to think.
Especially when you know his history, right? Because, I mean, he went through some pretty major trauma and lost everything. And, if you listen to his story, it's not been an easy life.
No, we've all got stories. It's all relevant. We'll go through these challenges and stuff, but that's part of this wonderful world of life, isn't it? It's the way we handle them and what we do with it. You know, I'm very lucky to the position I'm in now where, when you sell a business to private equity and come out the other side, I get to sort of pick and choose what I do. So, but this is what I love doing. So that's a good part to it. Yeah.
Nice little segue there. So you are now an EOS implementer, and I'm rather keen to hear why you decided to do that. And I know that you shared with me before we came on the podcast that you looked at both scaling up and EOS. So really keen to understand how you arrived at EOS and why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, the easy part is to genuinely make a difference in other people's lives and take them through the process because I've been in the pain of not sleeping and frustrated and staff leaving. I've been in that pain. We were still comfortable when we were at the plateau. We had plenty of money and profitable business. So God, only hate to think of what it was like if you weren't making money. So we still were in a comfort, but a discomfort. So to go through that now, when I go and talk to other businesses, there's so many areas where they just got blind spots and where you can genuinely sit and help them. And, having those difficult conversations, sitting with a leadership team and being okay that this isn't okay, and helping people. I've already seen the differences it makes in people's lives. That's what buzzes me out.
Perfect. So the more difficult question then, so with obviously EOS and scaling up. And by the way, I've also trained in scaling up and I love scaling up in the Rockefeller habits. But I chose to go with EOS for my own reasons. What was your decision-making process and why EOS?
Yeah, well, 6 years ago, we put scaling up and machines for you. So that was the running process. We used a coach. So I've been through the process of putting scaling up in the business. I just felt like it was a bit more difficult. Like I'd read the book, Vern Harnish's book. I've seen him talk, all that sort of stuff. I feel like the EOS system just complements each other. The components come together like a jigsaw puzzle. Scaling up, I feel like they're sort of over here, over there, over there. But EOS is more simpler and it just really, they complement each other. And when you fine tune them and get the scorecard right with the rocks and then the level 10, I mean, those little three in the accountability chart, accountability chart's crucial. I mean, that's just amazing. When you put those things together, that beats any system. It won't be because of the running system if your business goes bad. It would be because you had the wrong model or the wrong products. You're not solving enough problems for
Or
customers.
wrong people in the wrong seats. And, the accountability chart, I think the accountability chart is a game changer as well. It's like people love to get into doing the VTO because that's the simple bit. Oh, let's put our plan together. But until you actually have people who are fully accountable and they know what they're accountable for, the rest doesn't actually happen.
Oh, it just helps so much. Like, if you go back at the reverse of that of an org chart, how many people, like me included, when started, it was like, oh, you got to do that org chart thing. And it's like, oh, you look around the room, oh, there's five of us, we'll draw them on the paper. And then, oh, we want to add another one, we'll draw one over there. And then we put it back in the drawer. And then we're like, oh, we haven't looked at that org chart thing for a while. That was genuinely the world I came from. So then when you start creating an accountability chart which matches in what the business needs over the next 12 months, that's a game changer. That helps you with employing the right person next. Because otherwise we end up with these wrong people in our business that maybe they should have come in, but maybe they're three or four people down the track. So that's what I love about it. You can just see it, create it by design, have the right people with the right job descriptions, right KPIs, right cultural fit, and then hold them accountable. And then that's genuinely how the success comes, isn't it? Really, from.
I had a client who actually did it 5 years out. So he had 12 people in his business, but he went 5 years out and said, in 5 years, probably going to have about 40 roles. And these are the different roles that we'll have, these accountabilities. And so obviously they had a current accountability chart. Meant people were wearing multiple hats, but it then made it really easy to understand what the next hire should be. Because you could very quickly identify Steve's wearing 4 hats and Debra's wearing 3 and Steve's getting really overwhelmed. Then the next hire has to be the person that's, in this particular accountability chart position.
Yeah, otherwise you're getting the emotion of the person coming to you going, I've got too much on my plate. Oh, have you? What? How big is their plate?
Yeah.
Hey, and it's like when you can look at the accountability chart and you go, oh, hang on, I can see you've got 3 roles. I think you go in reverse to them where you're actually talking to them saying, hang on a sec, we've got to go and get someone to help you earlier on. Once again, we set our staff up for success because we can see that, hang on, that's a big 3 roles that the person's actually doing here. And we should get someone skilled in it. We did that thing with the Colby, with Jason from Colby. It was absolutely brilliant and so stuck in my head. I'm very visual. So he got us to write with our left hand. You remember? Because if you're right-handed, you're going to write with your left hand. And it was the dog ran across the road to chase a tree up the cat. You write that with your left hand if you're right-handed, and the reverse, obviously, if you're the other way. But when you do that, it takes up so much energy and effort to be able to do it. Whereas that's what we're getting our people to do when they're not in that right seat. So that's why it's stuck in my head so much. So I'll sit with my clients and just go, hang on a sec, are you getting them to write with the right hand or the left hand? What job really suits that person? What is their genetic coding? What do they love doing? Because if they love doing it, your business will be better.
And I always sort of laugh and joke because I'm although I'm actually good with numbers from a board level and a high level, not so great at the day-to-day numbers. But there's no point in me doing that work because there are people who actually genuinely love it. My husband's an actuary. He loves numbers with a passion. I find it boring as batshit. So, for every one of me, there's somebody else who's going to love the bits I don't.
Well, I just look at my son and my daughter. Ruby's 11 and little Josh is 8. You give him maths We were doing it last night because we were going through the times tables. He loves it. And where did that come from? He came from the two same parents. Ruby loves English. You get her to read a book or do something like that, or get her to spell something. She's English and he's maths. And they came from the same parent. What, genetic coding, something happens where it's like he's maths and she's English. And they're so strong in that. So, if we give him more maths and her more English.
Going to be in a better place, absolutely. So for those who don't know what an accountability chart is, because there may be some people who are still exploring EOS, so the accountability chart is really about deciding what those main functions in your business are and developing a structure that supports those main functions. And within each box, you've got these sort of 5 or 6 roles that person is going to be accountable for. And so what that really helps you to do as an organization is to understand who is accountable for what. I've got an issue with customer service. Who do I go to? It helps you understand where things get passed off from one department to another. But it also becomes really clear that this is the role that we're looking for. Now, do we have the right person in that? So we do the structure first, people second. And so what we're talking about now is obviously you can sometimes look at a particular role and it might be a maths role, and putting an English person into it is not going to do the best for the company. So it starts to help you think about, have you got those right people in the right seats?
God, you'd be good for radio, eh? You're just so good at that. I guess that's why you do podcasts. God, that was brilliant. You could do an advertisement for radio or for TV. That was brilliant.
Probably speak a little bit too fast for both of those, but that's okay.
Talking about that's cool.
Hey, so I just want to ask, was there a really, really tough time in the business? You talked about hitting the ceiling, and I get that. But is there any sort of time when you really felt like it was almost time to give up? Because I know I've had business, I've kind of gone, I don't know if I can do this any longer. Have you had any of those experiences in your past?
I reckon it was around the time we were plateaued, and I could see how you could give up. I did start considering it, which is really weird for me. Anyone who knows me, I was Mr. Machines for you. I had the tattoo. Like if you're creating something from scratch, it's another baby. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of energy and effort that goes into it. But when you get in staff and they're not doing the right thing, that's got a lot of pain attached to it and a lot of emotion, a lot of sleepless nights. I always like to try and do the right thing by people. So if I wasn't, that didn't sit right with me. That and that was that looking in the mirror to see that I wasn't setting them up for success. So at the time, that was the most painful bit for me was going into the office. You had 3 or 4 people who could come in and hand their notice at any minute. That's a horrible, horrible feeling for you as a leader because you're just like, hang on a sec, you know, they could just come in and leave, and they were. They were just coming in and hand their notice in, and it was like, well, how are we actually setting them up? How are we training them? We had to go into all that. We had quite a terrible onboarding system. It was just chuck them out in the pit with the rest of everyone and go and do some of that selling stuff. I mean, so then when we looked at it and did a proper 12 boarding on week process, right person coming in because we were clear of our HR process, we got very good at recruiting the right people, clear about the process, clear about who we're looking for, who is the right person who should be in the seat. When we did that and then set them up for success and then they stick and then, Merry Christmas. You got long. That was the biggest cost in the business was turning over staff.
And we talk about there's good turnover, obviously, people who shouldn't be there, but there's definitely bad turnover. And if it's happening regularly, you've got to question what's really going on. Onboarding's an interesting one. I remember my first job in New Zealand. I arrived, I was as head of sales and marketing for an engineering firm. And I arrived in my office and I got there and it's like, they said, there's your desk. It's like, where's the computer? Where's the phone? Oh, you've got to organize all that yourself. Okay. And where's my induction? Well, just go talk to some people. You'll work it out. And it made me realize that, it's so important. Like, how does that make you feel as an employee? It makes you feel undervalued. It's that the team is not supporting you. Whereas if you go in there and they've got a beautifully organized induction program with a checklist of things you need to get done in a certain time frame, you feel like you're being set up for success.
I tell you, yeah, it might be a new generational thing because when I started sales repping back in Auckland, New Zealand, it was here's your car. There's some leftover brochures in the boot of it from the sales rep who left before. and here's your territory. And you're like, whoa, what the heck? And off you go. I remember you take off all excited, and you're sitting on the side of the road about to go and see your first customer, and you're like, what the hell do I do? And then you walk in and you get shot down to pieces. Didn't know what to do. Was it just a fight or flight, or just a survive for the fittest? Whereas I don't think customers accept that anymore. You've got to be on your game. For your staff have got to turn up and be on their game a lot more. Otherwise, people leave companies.
I think it might have been an industry thing, because I remember in the engineering industry, I went out on the road with the sales reps to find out what was going on. And they had no CRM, they had no note taking. They just kind of went in, talked about the rugby, the weather, and came out. I'd be going, what was the purpose of that call? What did you want out of it? And I came from the international kind of pharmaceutical industry. So I used to sell drugs. That's what I did as a living, to doctors, to psychiatrists and whatnot. And we had, back in the day, we're talking like 40 years ago, we had laptops, we had CRM, we had to be saying what the purpose of the call was, what our next step was. And I was just absolutely gobsmacked that none of that existed when I came over here to New Zealand. It's like, so maybe certain industries were ahead of the game, but others were a little bit, behind.
It definitely wasn't. It was just turn up and go and do some calls, get out of the office. That was what the sales manager said. Just don't come back till Friday. Friday afternoon, you're back for beers because we're playing pool across the road. You had to play. That was part of the social club. You had to come have a beer with them on a Friday. But
Excellent.
apart from that, they didn't want to see you to the end of the week.
Yeah, if you're out on the road, you were selling. That's what was the theory.
Yeah, and if you sold something, you stayed.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, well,
You didn't.
they'll have to find someone else.
Excellent. Okay, in terms of EOS, have you got a favorite EOS tool?
It's what we talked about before, the accountability chart, but the crucial part for a business is getting the leadership team right. And that's what we did really well. So self first, leader, then leadership team. So then that really leads into the accountability chart, having the scorecard, having the priorities set for the rocks, but then that level 10 meeting. I love if you call it the level 10 meeting, but it's these components that make it up. Because then you've got the leadership team catching up weekly, because we're not chasing rainbows. We go into, weekly 1% improvement. That's 52 times a year that we're going to improve if we're all catching up weekly with the right mindset. If those leaders work well together and they challenge each other and they're able to have those difficult conversations and communicate well, you've got a data person in there, you've got a strategic thinker of, that visionary, and then you've got your integrator who's running the team. When you've got those key leadership team working well, the profits will come out of your business. The money will just stream through the bank. I think the money coming through the bank is the reflection of the right things that you're doing in the business. And it's really that leadership team with the level 10.
And it's possibly where businesses fall over, is that they don't have that strong leadership team, even if they're quite large. I had a client who had about 50 contractors, but they were all kind of working as sort of like sub-employees, and didn't have a leadership team at all. So she was trying to do everything herself. And when she actually finally went, okay, I need to have a leadership team, I need an ops person, a finance person, a sales and marketing person, she was just like, oh my goodness, I've now got people who actually help me. And I don't have to do anything on my own. And so it's, even some of the bigger companies don't necessarily have that right leadership team, and it can be detrimental.
I find that a lot of the big companies don't have it.
Yeah.
It's still the owner holding on to things, controlling things, not having the right people around him, and her handing the things over and getting the people, to be able to have their input and to check some of the silly ideas. Visionary, we know, comes up with 20 ideas and one or two of them are great. So what about the other 18? If you go and poke at another 3 or 4 of those 18 in the business, they're going to set people off course.
You can have 11 people on leadership team all working 70, 80 hours a week and not getting anything done.
Yeah, well, one of my biggest learnings was to get checked by my leadership team, and for them to be okay with saying, hang on a sec, where's the data on this? Hang on a sec, what's this going to mean for this product? What's this going to mean for these staff members? When I had people challenging me in the business as the leadership team and they could do that, and it was genuinely company first, When we did that, that's where we got a lot of great things done, I believe.
Traction.
Traction, yeah, I don't want to say it, it sounds a bit cliche, but that's where we get it because that visionary doesn't get to just chuck all these things into the business, and then we through that we could have more efficiency and where we're working on the core because once we worked on the core of having the training stuff right, having the documentation stuff right. It sounds like all the boring stuff in business, but that's the stuff that makes an improvement.
Hey, look, I normally ask guests to give 3 top tips or tools. I think we've already covered a whole lot of them in here anyway, but is there any sort of, anything you'd like to share with the listeners that you really think will make a fundamental difference to the way that they live their life and run their business?
As leaders, we're responsible to go and work on ourselves, whether that's health, whether that's how we're showing up in the business, how we show up in the community at home and stuff. So I think as leaders, we should go on the pursuit of leadership. And then that will flow into, getting a right coach to work with. That'll flow into health. Flow into better people in the business, which ultimately means better businesses, which means better communities, and so on. So I think that's a responsibility of a leader to go on the pursuit of leadership.
One last question for you. I saw in your bio that you've done the Rotorua Marathon. Tell me about that and relate it to business for me.
Okay, man, there was some learnings in that one. Because I went and did it at a time where we just had Ruby too, so it was very young baby. But I was back in New Zealand, and my sister and I, and my other brother actually, had always wanted to run the marathon, the Rotorua Marathon, because as a kid we used to always put water out the front. We were on the main road of in Rotorua, so all the runners every year we used to put out the water and put out oranges and sponges and all this sort of stuff. So I loved it, but I always wanted to run it, but I knew it was really extremely difficult. I mean, it still blows me away to think I actually ran 42 Ks around that big lake. But yeah, so then go back for Christmas, and my sister and I are like, right, we're going to do it this year. Of course, after a couple of Chardonnays on Christmas Day. And then, so that was, December 25. Well, we were running it on the 2nd or 3rd of May. So that at the time I could run about 5 kilometers. So I was like, I got to run. I signed up. I told the family. So I'd committed. I don't want to look like a goose and not do it, And of course, my sister would show me up. So then I had to feel like I had to beat her because that's what I do. So I just went out running straight away. We were in the Coromandel. I ran 16 kilometers over the rocks over the hills and rocks on a sunny day. We just ended up blowing up my calves, stuffing my ankles because I had no plan. So back to what this is for business, I had no plan. I just ran and ran like about 6 days in a row. Ended up back in Melbourne, had to go and see the physio, fix my calves, do all that. But in that meantime, my wife, very structured and detail and good at having a plan, went and gave me a marathon running book. And then I got the 4 months of training out on the mirror in my bathroom, got the months out. I knew the days I needed to run. I knew what I needed to eat and drink and all that sort of stuff. So then I had a plan, and then lo and behold, I ran the marathon.
Excellent.
So I did it in a short period of time, 4.5 months, and trained. But if I didn't have a plan, I would have just blown myself up like I did. I did the perfect visionary, go out, just absolutely no detail, and blew myself up. But I fixed it.
Perfect analogy, isn't it? Because first you're committing to a goal, you're writing it down, you're sharing it, you're getting a plan, and then you're holding yourself accountable to actually do it on a regular basis. Yeah.
And I did it. Yeah, the big part of telling everyone, quite good at achieving goals nowadays, and it's through that. It's writing it down, getting it clear, committing, and then holding yourself accountable to actually do it. And that's the same in business, isn't it? That's what we should be doing with all our team.
And it's amazing what you actually can do. I haven't done a full marathon, I did a half marathon. I was quite pleased with that. But also I went and did Outward Bound when I was in my late 40s. So I was the oldest, fattest person to do Outward Bound, I think. And they kept telling us we had to run 3 kilometers every morning. And they told us we were running 12 kilometers on the last day. It's like, I can't run 12 kilometers. But lo and behold, when the time came, we did the 12 kilometers and we did it. Yeah. So it was pretty exciting.
Awesome. No, that's it's what's possible, and that was that Rising Kings when I was in the Code Black. You can find you capable of doing one more step. It's just one more step, and that's the same in business. There's just one more step. We're far capable more than what we actually think we are.
And I think your whole 1% thing, obviously it's atomic habits and all that thing, but it is just that 1% can just make such a huge difference. And you don't have to go for the rainbows, the unicorns, the pots of gold. Just keep improving things 1% and stick to it and you'll get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. We haven't spent much time together as EOS implementers, so it's really nice to actually get to hear your story and to share some of your tips and tools. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hopefully, a couple of people listen to this and they actually take some the ideas out. That would be great.
I'm
If
sure
they
they
could
will.
go and plug it into their businesses and reach out if they want to have a chat about anything
So
about
how do they reach out to you?
I'm actually just setting up Boss Man coaching because I love the name, Boss Man. I used to, my kids called me Boss Man because they used to come in the school holidays. I'd always take them into the business, and they called me Boss Man. And then the staff cottoned onto it, so I was Boss Man. So I'm setting up Boss Man coaching to. That's the other part to it. I just want to help people with leadership, and of course I've got the EOS part to help companies with the structure and stuff. But I think there's a big thing needed in business for helping leaders and getting the leader right, which then they can go and do the rest of this and plug it in with their people.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure I put a link to that in the podcast notes. So yeah, good luck with that. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's not something we're taught in schools, and it's not something we're taught necessarily in business. So you need some help, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help.
Yeah, well, that was that accidental manager, isn't it? Because you go into business because you get this great idea or you want to do it, but then there's so many things you've got to learn and evolve, and it starts with us. So yeah, that's where I've realised that there can be a lot more help in this space for being able to help leaders across the journey.
Perfect. Get yourself a coach, get yourself an operating system, get yourself a peer group, and with those three legs of the stool, you should find business a whole lot easier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Hey, thanks, Steve, again. Really appreciate it.
All right, no worries. Thanks, Debra.